Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Circle Up and Get Real. The tagline has been where we talk about things that matter with people who matter. And I've kind of explained that over the last several episodes as whoever is interested in listening is someone who matters. And lately, I haven't had any guests, so it's just been me with my own thoughts. And today I wanted to talk about the word occur. I remember a client I worked with, oh man, several years ago now. We used that word on the team that I was working with as a signal that something has occurred in my mind to my understanding of things. And it was a signal for others to drop their defenses and listen differently. So we'd say something like, it just occurred to me that blank, blank, blank. And then that other person would know to listen openly. And I'm not sure if that stuck with that team or not, but it really did stick with me back then. And that word has become really important to me because sometimes things occur to me that I don't know how they got there. I don't know that I put anything in there as an impetus for that thought to occur. And so I wanted to break down that word today and think about how things occur to people and what it is that causes those seemingly random thoughts to come into our minds. So I have some theories about that, and I just wanted to throw them out based on what I experienced this morning in my quiet time. So I don't do meditation as meditation, I guess, because I have this weird recovering perfectionistic tendency about meditation that I don't do it right. So I don't call it meditation, but really I have quiet time every day. And every morning I spend probably the first hour to 90 minutes doing things like reading and pondering and maybe listening to a podcast or something, YouTube, something. So this morning, I woke up really early and I didn't go back to sleep. And I'm always reminded of something Wayne Dyer said many years ago. When you're awakened in the middle of the night or early, early morning, don't go back to sleep. Something's trying to occur to you, something is trying to come to you, perhaps. And so this morning, I didn't go back to sleep. I watched a couple of podcasts and I guess podcast one and then YouTube two, maybe three. I can't remember exactly the order this morning, but the first thing I watched was Simon Sinek's latest podcast interview on his podcast, which is called A Bit of Optimism. One of my favorite podcasts. I watch it all the time. I watch it on YouTube. You can listen to it too in traditional podcast ways if you want to, but I love watching it. This was a really good one to watch because he was interviewing somebody, but he was also somebody's, more than one, and he was walking through a plant where they worked and showing different people. So he interviewed more than one person on this podcast, and it was really, there were a lot of synchronicities for me this morning when that was what I watched. I also watched I have notes down here, so I'm kind of looking. I also watched, well, let's get into that later. Let me talk about this first, and then I'll tell you about what else I watched that created these occurrences for me. This podcast, there was no accident that I happened to watch this at, something like 3:30 this morning. He was interviewing Bob Chapman, and Bob Chapman is the CEO, I believe. I don't know if he's, I don't know what his title is. I think he's chairman of the board now, and he might be retired. But he's been running this organization called Barry Weimiller. I believe I'm getting that right. And they are in Phillips, Wisconsin. And they are a factory that makes machines. Actually, I don't even know exactly what that organization does because the whole more than an hour this morning was way more about the who of the business than the what of the business, which I found fascinating, but no surprise because that's kind of how Simon Sinek rolls. And he is one of my favorite people to follow. I feel so in alignment with him. I remember the first time I discovered Simon Sinek in 2009. It just opened up so much. I remember distinctly where I was in my house when I first heard his TED Talk. So he's had a huge influence on me. And I love following him. I love how he interviews people. I love how his brain works. I feel like I have a lot in common with him in the paths that we've both taken. He is a thought leader. I consider myself a thought leader. I don't run a team. He now has a team, Simon does, because he has his organization has grown beyond just him. So I really find him intriguing. And this interview today was with his mentor. He says Bob Chapman is his mentor. They first connected many years ago when Bob reached out to Simon to help Bob get the word out about his company and the culture of his company and the leadership of his company because Simon had a platform. And I'm making this up from what I understood the interview this morning as I'm, half asleep at the beginning of it. What I learned from this is everything I wanted to believe was possible in an organization. And like Simon, when he first met Bob, Simon said, I used to think I was a crazy idealist. I didn't think I was a realist. I thought I was an optimist and believed all these things could be possible. And kind of the platform Simon operated in was maybe someday out there something could happen. And so his work was always about idealizing a situation that he didn't know could ever really be in real life until he met Bob Chapman. And he realized that everything he was idealizing as far as leadership and people and all of the squishy, touchy-feely stuff that Simon believed was possible, he found in Bob Chapman's leadership at his company. Now his company is, I'll have to put it in the notes here, and you can find out more about the company. But it's in Phillips, Wisconsin, 6 hours from where I live in Fargo, and it's a factory. I think they do machining. I don't know. They do something. I recognize the setting because I've worked in manufacturing almost my whole career with leadership and communication and culture type things in manufacturing environments. I guess I've spent most of my time when I've been in manufacturing helping to promote John Miller's work of personal accountability. That would probably be the one thing I've done most in my work in factories and manufacturing. So I recognized a lot of the people I saw in the video today as people who were just regular old people like I've encountered forever in my career. Yet there was something completely separate and different and idealistic and optimistic. And I can't even explain how Bob Chapman sees his humans as humans. The people in the company, in fact, he said in the interview, because Simon said, we never talk about what you do or what your company does. He said, well, look around, you see, we are a place where people are seen as people and where people can become the best version of themselves as humans that's possible. I've been talking about this for so long in my own awareness of the possibility of this and haven't really known how to gain traction. I believe it's true. I believe when you see people as humans and not as objects, I believe that there's possibility that they will then become better. I'm not even saying the right words right now because I'm just going to kind of say what's coming out of my mind. Better humans, better parents, better citizens, because they spend 8 hours at least of their days in a space which impacts and affects them and in which they can impact and affect others. If you go to a job, you punch a time clock, you feel like you're just a cog in a wheel, you spend 8 hours in a heaviness that you can't really describe because that's all we've really been conditioned to believe work is. It's just a place you go so that you exchange your time for money. And then you can have enough money, hopefully, to, feed a family or buy a house or a car or whatever. And we just think this is the machine that work has to be. I did. I lived most of my life believing that was it. Joy at work? Come on, you can't do that. That's not something that you can expect. But when it occurred to me today to just pay attention, I was sleepy and I thought, I'm going to go back to sleep. I'll just put this on and listen in the background. I couldn't just listen in the background. It took me about a minute to fully engaged with this, I think it was probably an hour and 12 minutes, if I'm remembering correctly, interview. And what that showed me was that there is possibility for everything. You'll have to watch it to get the whole story. Bob Chapman wasn't always the leader he became. He wasn't always aware that this was a possibility. He will tell the story of how he just did his job the way he was taught when he went to college and had a business degree. And I think he was in accounting. And this is what they teach you. They don't teach you how to treat humans as humans in business school. His company, Barry Weimiller, I hope I'm getting that right, has an internal university where the first class they teach is empathetic listening. Come on. I've been in factories all the time. We've got people there that are not really the ones you would think of who would be interested in leaning forward in a class called empathetic listening. There's one story on this podcast that I watched, guy with a big beard. If you watch it, I was so moved by this. I was so touched by this. Okay, so anyway, I'm not going to tell you any more about that specific podcast, but I'm just going to let you know that when something occurs to you, when something comes to you, when some random thought occurs to you, don't treat that lightly. I don't know exactly where those random thoughts come from, but watching that podcast today, just randomly, reinforced some of the things I've known. I've known for so long in my life and haven't always had a platform for, haven't always had a place to create dialogue around. And I know I'm not the only one. I always have known I'm not the only one, but I always feel like I'm one of the few. And so then it's hard to know where to go to continue some of these thoughts that need a platform, need a place to grow. So, random occurrence number 1. So then, random occurrence number 2. After this podcast, you know how it just kind of continues? It continued with I go back. With a Heather Cox Richardson review. I watch her occasionally. I really respect her work as a historian. There are people, oh, by the way, I should probably preface this next part by saying there are going to be people that are maybe listening to this. I don't know. I don't even know if people listen to this. But if you listen to this, I'm pretty sure that something I'm going to say is going to affect you in a negative way. Because everybody has opinions right now. Everybody has their way of seeing the world. And I'm going to mention a couple of names that could probably set you off. Because if you've already got an opinion about something, these two next people I'm going to mention are on opposite ends of the political spectrum, and you will probably be triggered in some way if you have an opinion. So there you go. The first person is Heather Cox Richardson. I have a friend who is my go-to. I have friends on both sides of the political spectrum because I'm doing my best to stay in the middle. So I have a go-to on the right, go-to on the left. My go-to on the right says he watches Heather Cox Richardson as kind of entertainment, kind of to laugh. And so I already know, if you're watching this, friend, you know who you are, and, take it as you will. She had some really interesting things to say this morning that kind of reinforced what I'd heard from Bob Chapman. And not snarky, not mean, not negative, not disparaging. The way I heard it was Bob, right? The whole platform that Bob was talking about is seeing humans as humans and treating humans as if you really love them, as you would your kids, as you would. Everybody is somebody's son or daughter. Everybody is somebody's son or daughter. And when you think of anything through that context, it changes a bit. So Heather Cox Richardson had really great ideas this morning because I was listening in that frame. Everyone is somebody's son or daughter. And then it occurred to me that Marjorie Taylor Greene was on The View yesterday. Again, insert your preconceived notion here. Marjorie Taylor Greene, The View. Opposite sides of a political spectrum. if you can do it, I believe you're able, but if you're willing to take off any kind of judgment you have right now, that was fascinating. That was a fascinating interview. There was so much in that. Sure, the information was interesting. The dynamics were, wow, really fascinating to me. When you take off any judgment you have, you look at something from a different lens. Bob Chapman was saying the lens he was seeing things through was completely turned around, which caused him to see everything differently. By the way, let me go back to Bob for a second. His company is global, and his company has had, I mean, they're top in their industry. So changing the lens from production first to people first has not affected them negatively. You'll have to listen to how he's been taught that the way you grow a business is sometimes you got to cut people, and sometimes you just it's cost of doing business. He doesn't see it that way, and so taking off the lens that says everything has to be a certain way with the way I've seen things in my past, with the opinions I already bring to any new conversation, will probably cause you to probably see things the way you probably have already seen them. And probably we will have very similar effects in our lives that we probably have our whole lives. Because you're probably going to see things the same way unless something shifts. Like Bob said, the lens shifted and then everything looked different. And the possibilities I see this morning that I might not have seen yesterday are because of the random things that occurred to me this morning. Random, I put up air quotes if you're not watching and you're listening. Random things that occurred to me this morning. And if I pay attention to where those random occurrences come from, I have a faith. I have a faith. There's a spiritual dimension to everything I do. I've been really careful throughout my career to be agnostic about that and to be inclusive. I still feel that way. And some people who have really strong opinions of spirituality in one box will disparage what I'm trying to do to bring people together because they already have a preconceived notion of what that word even means. That's the danger of, well, not danger necessarily, but the limitation that we have with the words. Words have such meaning attached to them and carry a lot of baggage for people. And if we're not willing to take a step out of the old way of seeing things, we will use words against each other. And that's the challenge in the world we live today. Marjorie Taylor Greene was saying that you've seen clips of her through the media. And she's done some things that, you know, if there's a video camera on you and you are taking action, I mean, it's going to show that. Of course, now we have AI and we don't know what's true and what's not. Use your discernment. I think you can tell in most cases. But she didn't shy away from that on the interview on The View. She said, yeah, you've seen clips of me. And her demeanor was so different than what I would have expected it to be on that show, which showed me that it's possible to have dialogue. Everything I've believed is possible. I say everything. I don't know if I could say everything, but a lot of things I've believed are possible. Dialogue. Suspending previous assumptions in order to learn from each other. I've believed that's possible. I've believed that's possible in religious and political settings, which are the two things we're never supposed to talk about in public, right? I witnessed it today on that clip. I believed it was possible for an organization, a factory, I guess. I didn't qualify what kind of industry I was thinking about when I had these dreams about corporations. But when you think about that, these are people who haven't necessarily had the opportunity to learn in a traditional sense, going to college or going to grad school or all these things. These are people, humans that I heard about today who are like, I've worked here my whole life. My dad worked here. My kids are working here. Because there's such an amazing opportunity for the humans to be seen as individuals and to be grown so that they can bring their best selves to this place they work, not just to produce a really good product, which by the way they do, I guess. We didn't even talk about, or they didn't even talk about that. But these people want to be there. They want to be seen as humans. They want to belong. We all do. And why would we not want to make our organizations be a place where that can happen? Bob Chapman gets it. Oh my gosh. It was so inspiring to me. And then just to hear Heather Cox Richardson and Marjorie Taylor Greene have these conversations that I saw in a different light. It could have been me. It could have been the lens I was looking at. But I really do believe things are starting to shift. I think we're starting. Maybe we've done it forever and I just haven't seen it. But to see people as people and not only as objects. Many years ago, golly, I don't even know, years ago, I was introduced to the Arbinger Group, which is an organization that's written some books. I've been part of watching some of their workshops online. And the first book I read from that organization was called Leadership and Self-Deception. And that really changed my outlook on the possibilities that exist when we as individual humans start treating leadership differently. And that book was amazing. And that was the first place I ever really heard the term seeing people as objects versus seeing people as people. And that has never left my mind. And that concept came up today with Bob Chapman. Another book that the Arbinger Group has published and we've studied in one of my groups is, The Anatomy of Peace. And all of these books that seemingly were random occurrences in my life years and years ago have built something in me that has a space now. It feels like there's a space to bring these back because people are starting to wake up to the possibilities that can exist when the people in our organizations are seen for the amazing humans they are, instead of just as somebody who's going to do a job for me. And the leaders who begin to see that and lead that way, by the way, I had an opportunity to be with a group like that yesterday. Thank you to that group, because the leaders were in that room. We had, I'm going to say 25, I didn't count them, 25 leaders where we had a conversation like this. And the people in that room, oh man, that listening space they allowed me to speak into yesterday was so amazing. So we mutually had something that occurred for all of us in that space related to leadership, related to culture, related to seeing our humans and saying something about the good things we notice in them. This company does that so well already. They brought me in to just enhance what they know they already do well. It's here, you guys. It's here. There are possibilities. There are options. There are ways to have these engaging conversations. When something occurs to you as something positive and good, when you see it and hear it, say it. And if you notice that what occurs to you is something bad, when I say bad, I mean negative, something that will tear people down, we know the difference between a good thought, a positive thought, and a negative thought. We know the difference. There's a good and a bad. There's a right and a wrong. We know that. When we see that, what are we going to act on? More of what's wrong? More of what we want so desperately to be right about, even if it's the wrong thing? What are we going to do? Glom on to all the things we see on social media that say this person or this group is stupid and bad? I mean, we can, I suppose. We can make that choice and keep doing that, but you're making that choice on purpose. You're making that choice consciously when you continue to do it. Unless you get to a point where you go, this isn't really having a positive effect on anything. At least not the way I've been doing it. Maybe there's a way to come together with people who have different opinions and different ideas. Well, I'm not even going to say maybe. I'm going to say there is. There is. What are you looking for? What are you committed to? I need to speak in this tone more often because I can't sit idly by and watch people continue to divide their families, their communities, their businesses, their politics, their religion. All of that is, if it occurs to you as something divisive, then stop. Stop. Stop dividing. There must be another way. There is another way. Unless what you want is to be the king of division. If that's what you want, king or queen of division, okay, I get that. I understand. That's a below the line awareness, which is unconscious, which is showing everyone that you're more committed to being right than you are to learning. Okay, I get it. What we're going to notice is a wider divide then, not because there are those of us trying to bring it together, but because those of us who don't believe that's possible or whatever reason are continuing to divide. Okay, I get it. That's not me. I am taking my inspiration from Simon and from Bob today, who both said, I want to build something that will live beyond me. I want to build something that will go beyond the time I have left on the earth. Because if we continue down the road we are more conscious of, aware of, I'll say, because of social media, okay, I would bet there's, I can't say an equal number of positive, but there's probably a lot of positive social media too. We just don't see it because it's not sexy and it's not where the money is. The money is, well, actually, everything, if you look at it like that, everything is a big statement, but a lot of things are dependent on where is the money. Follow the money. I get that. So what if we start following the money, but not for where it's being where it's exploiting, but where it's being invested? And is it being invested in our people? Is it being invested in our communities? Is it being invested for the long term? Investment is long term. Cost and expense is short term. And if we get that mixed up, it's no wonder our businesses are all about the short-term gains. And if we don't have short-term gains, we cut the bottom. We do. It's what we've been taught. That's what Bob Chapman said. That's what Jack Welch told us. Cut off the bottom, 10%? Isn't that what Microsoft did for a while? Every year, no matter how positive you are or how great your intentions are, if you're not part of the team that makes us money, sorry, see ya. You'll get another job. Go. That's completely backwards, according to Bob Chapman. I'm going to take a breath and stop. Thank you for those of you who have been watching. I appreciate the reactions. I appreciate that you guys are here. If you've made a comment, I haven't been able to see it. I don't know if that's a Facebook thing or not, but please help me spread the word. If you've heard anything here today that inspires you, if anything has occurred to you as something that you'd like to help grow, join me. Help me. Subscribe to my podcast. I don't even really know how to ask that because I'm not good at that. But I have a Substack every Monday. I write things like this. It's called Get Real with Jody. Everything is kind of branded Get Real with Jody. Working with Chris on our book, which we're making great progress with. The book is called Roots, and the subtitle is, I have to look over here, The Human Framework Beneath Thriving Teams. That's the subtitle of our book, Roots. Coming out, talking about culture, going to give you some frameworks for building a culture like Bob Chapman's. Well, maybe not exactly like Bob Chapman's, but something that will have an effect like that. We have to take different action if we want different results. Wishing and hoping is awesome. It's a great place to start, but it's not a strategy. And so if you want things to be different, you have to learn to be different yourself. Turn the lens like Bob Chapman did. Do something different if you want a different result. If you like the result you're getting from the things you're doing, keep doing them. That should go without saying. Keep doing what you're doing if what you're doing is producing a result you truly desire. Because that's the goal, isn't it? To get to the point where you see the effects of your actions and it's exactly what you want those effects to be. Well, keep doing that. That's what I'm here to help you do that. So please reach out. Mondays, Enlightened Leadership Lab, this is the kind of thing we talk about. We've just added conscious business meetups. We had a super great turnout this week. Love to have more in person in Fargo. There's also an option in Las Vegas and an option in Spokane. If you're interested in getting involved in a conscious business meetup, we'd love to tell you more about that. Just don't sit by and think that the world's going to hell in a handbasket. Because if that's the lens you're looking through, then of course that's what you'll probably see forever. There's a lot more going on. Let's just bring that to the surface. Let's have that occur to us, okay? If you're at all interested in that, please join me in some of these conversations. Reach out to me. Let's continue having these conversations because it starts with the talk, but it can end there. Go find a way to be real this week. Radical, energized, authentic, and learning focused. Maybe you need to get a little radical. Maybe you need to shake something up. Maybe you need to say, yeah, I've been settling for things that I just didn't think could be any different. They can. You don't have to hate your job. You don't have to hate your life. There are ways that you can go, maybe there's something else. Trust me, I will have faith in that possibility, and you can lean on my faith in that until you build your own. Because I don't want to do this by myself. I want to do this with those of you who want to do this with me. And this can be anything. We're still in, figuring that out. We're still figuring that out. What's the this? What are the steps we can take? I'm taking many steps on purpose over time, including this podcast. I mean, I think this is, I don't remember what episode this will be, 280 something. Okay, I'll keep doing it. I'll keep walking. I just love to have more of you walking with me. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you again. Bye.